A very warm, a very warm good afternoon to all of you. I'm Sakshi, and I will be your host for today. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you in today's webinar on Net Zero Energy Roadmap Cement Sector. It is my pleasure to be here as your host. We would like to extend our gratitude to our presenting partner, Sunshore, and Advisory Council Terry for their immense support to help organize this event. Many thanks to our esteemed guest speakers and the attendees for their valuable presence in today's webinar. Your active participation has contributed in making this event truly remarkable and successful. May I now request Mr. Saurabh Palsania, who is the Joint President for Shree Cement Limited, to deliver the opening remarks. Attendees are requested to post in their questions that will be taken up by him after his speech. Over to you, Mr. Saurabh.
Dear colleagues, friends, audience, and organizers, I'm privileged to speak on the topic net zero, which is very close to my heart, and I always passionately look forward to contribute. In this phase of the world, which is grappling with daunting climate challenges, it is essential to focus on the net zero solutions, essentially for those emission intensive industries like cement production. As global crisis of carbon emission continue to rise, the urgency to address the issue has never been more pressing. The established standards and agreements like Paris Agreement, which talks about keeping the pre-industry level temperatures low as 2%, has paved a way for all of us to contribute globally on this issue. The future of our planet and the well-being of generations to come depend upon our commitment to those ideals, making it a collective responsibility for transition to more sustainable practice and secure a habitable world to all. The cement industry of the size which exists in India emits approximately 2 million ton of carbon CO2 per annum, and 55% of it comes from calcination of limestone, 30% from burning of fossil fuels, 10% from using energy based on coal-based power plants, and 5% on HSD, which is used in logistics. Going reverse, 5% for 5% of diesel, we have got solutions like EVs and hydrogen gas, which we foresee that in another 2-3 years, it will be feasible also to use that, viable and feasible also to use that. When the production of such batteries which are used in EVs will start from our own source of lithium iron. And similarly, when the industry of electrolyzers will have a good space in India. Now, moving to the second 10% contribution through fossil fuel based power, a lot of investment have been done by Indian cement industry, and all of the in renewable power like solar, wind, hybrid power, and also on turbines which are running at the with the hot air generated in cement plants, which was earlier on emitted in the environment. Yes, few of all the industries are operating somewhere between say 10% of renewable energy to 60% of renewable energy, and here we may require a support from government on banking regulations and technology providers on feasible solution for battery storage, which can take this industry to more than 90% of renewable power or even 100% in years to come. Then moving to 30% of the fuel that is being burned in the kiln, which is generally coal or pet coke. A lot of investments and a lot of efforts have been done by cement industry with the help of crude technology which is available today, and invested a lot in cement plants for pre-processing and feeding of materials. But with the type of waste which is available and with the current challenges of high investments, industry is operating between say 5 to 15% of thermal substitution rate. We can go much ahead with the help of right technology for pre-processing, right segregation of waste, and also technology to reduce ash and moisture content in the waste. And similarly, some subsidies for investment in pre-processing and feeding arrangements in plants, cement plants. Now, the biggest chunk, which is 55%, we may say with all these efforts in next 3 years, I foresee that 40-45% say net, road will be covered towards net zero. The biggest challenge will be that this 55%, which is through burning of limestone. Here, there are few options, but that will not be sufficient, like moving to limestone, cement, which uses lesser limestone or lesser clinker. But then important is to adoption of carbon capturing and utilization as well as storage technology, which presently is not viable. Maybe because of the capital investment, but also for the use of that captured carbon, either storing it or utilization of the same by those industries which are using it as a raw material, or maybe converting it to methanol. But these industries will have to coexist. So it's different, or a second level of partnership will be required. And for this, I would suggest that the core team may be formed with representation from cement industry, CCUS technology providers, and say electrolyzer technology providers, battery storage technology providers, industries using CO2 as raw material, DPIIT, under the leadership of Niti Aayog, to lay down a sustainable solution, making CCUS a viable and profitable solution for all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those opening remarks. I would request my team to play the commercial video for Sunsure now.
The renewable energy revolution has begun. Conventional sources of energy are proving too costly for the planet. As a renewable energy hotspot, India has the potential to lead the world's decarbonization journey. That's where we come in. Sunsure is India's fastest growing renewable energy company. We believe in delivering maximum impact by harnessing the power of RE technologies to supply round-the-clock clean energy to industries across the country. We run both intrastate and interstate plants to deliver green power at any scale of requirement. Since 2014, we have helped over 60 corporations transition to clean power, cut costs, and achieve their ESG and RE100 goals. Our investors, Partners Group, are powering Sunshore's vision of becoming one of the largest global renewable energy producers. India's renewable energy moment has arrived. Be a part of it.
Okay, so I'll continue to remain connected.
Thank you so much, team, for playing that video. Mr. Pahuja, I would request you to keep your mic off. As we all are aware, India is the world's second largest producer and consumer of cement. However, with this expansion comes the pressing need to manage the industry's environment impact. This Net Zero Energy Roadmap Cement webinar delves into the energy landscape, carbon emissions, and the prospects for attaining carbon neutrality in the cement sector. These industries may achieve carbon neutrality while preserving competitiveness and long term sustainability by prioritizing energy efficiency, renewable energy integration, material efficiency, waste management, R&D, and employee participation. In today's webinar, we'll look at how the cement industries are working to combat climate change and achieve sustainability goals. Before we proceed, I would like to make a brief announcement. We encourage all attendees to actively engage in the discussion by posting in their questions in the Q&A box. Our esteemed panel of speakers will address these questions during the interactive Q&A session once we conclude with the panel discussion. Now, without any further ado, let us commence our highly anticipated panel discussion session for today. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panel of experts who will share their insights and expertise on the topic at hand. Mr. Girish Sethi from TERI, Mr. Raju from Sustainability Orient Cement, Mr. Ashwani from National Council for Cement and Building Materials, Mr. Chattopadhyay from Birla Corporation Limited, Mr. Kartikeya Sharma from Sunshore, Ms. Monica Srivastava from JSW Cement, Mr. Badola from Dalmia Cement, Mr. Saurabh Palsania from Shree Cement. Mr. Girish Sethi will be the moderator for the session. Over to you, Mr. Sethi.
So thanks, Sakshi, for the introduction, and thank you to, first of all, to Mr. Saurabh Palsania, I think, for giving a very nice brief background of the sector as a whole, where we stand and what needs to be done at a very high level. And also, I would just like to thank once again, hi to Kartikeya. I think it's the second time we are interacting on this panel. There was a few weeks back, I think, on the other session. So I think Sunshore has been doing a great job, I think, in moving the whole corporate sector. We just heard in the corporate commercial video that more than 60 corporates, I think, are being served by them. And I think, as I understand, I think they have been getting huge investments, I think, to move in the whole field of industry decarbonization, energy decarbonization. And I'm sure that I think we have this big player now working hand to hand with the corporate sector. And we could see very big names, I think, on the commercial video with whom we have collaborated. And all the best, I think, for your future ventures. We hope to hear from you on what more can be done as we move ahead in this panel discussion. So I would, my name is Girish, I think, as Sakshi mentioned. So we are, I represent the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI. We are one of the largest think tanks in India working in the field of energy, environment, and sustainable development. And we have been working in this field of, I would say, energy efficiency, renewables. And now I think everybody has been talking about the whole concept of net zero. I think ever since we have heard from many of the global players, all the countries, many countries, including India, I think, also announced its commitment to be a net zero by 2070. Other countries in the developed world have talked about 2050 or so, more or less. So I think this is a time where, although it looks very far off, 2070, but it's actually not very far off if we really look at it, because sectors like cement, steel, and many other sectors actually have long gestation period, and any investments which we make today have a very long life. And it's the right time now to start thinking in those directions. And cement sector, as we know, I think, has been categorized or talked about as a hard to abate sector, I think. And along with steel and petrochemicals, and at least if we look at the industry as a sector as a whole, But also, I think there are other sectors beyond the industry, like shipping, for example, or aviation, where and also long distance trucking, for example. So things are difficult in these sectors, but out of all these, I would consider, at least within the industry, cement is really the hardest to avoid. Just because I think Mr. Palsania very clearly mentioned at the start that 55% of the CO2 emissions coming from calcination are actually something which will definitely will come, unless and until we say that we will not produce cement, we will start producing something else. So if we are producing cement, you will definitely get CO2 emissions from calcination of the limestone. So with this basic discussion, I would just like to mention that we at TERI have also been working closely with the cement sector partners, I think over the last 1.5 years or so. I think some of the panelists today, including, I would like to acknowledge, I think Mr. Raju, I think from Orient Cements, who is there, Anupam Badola, and a few others. I think they have all been part of some of the discussions as a part of the Global Cement and Concrete Association initiative on net zero, which TERI has been working with them. And we have gained as TERI quite a lot through these interactions. And I think this seminar, which we are having, and we have a couple of other speakers also here, will also help contribute to this larger discussion as GCCA prepares its roadmap towards net zero. And I think even the other associations, the older association, CMA, is also actually wanting to get into this whole discussion of how the cement industry also has to move to a net zero roadmap. So the sector as a whole, if we really look at it broadly from my perspective, actually I started, let me say that started my career in the after my graduation by joining the National Council for Cement and Materials, and I'm so happy to see Mr. Dr. Ashwini Pahuja also, who is the former DG of NCB, also joining today. And under his guidance and leadership, I learned the ABC of cement. So really seeing that, and now as I moved over to TERI after many years, when I compare cement sector with other sectors, I really see the cement sector really standing out, especially if one looks at some of the parameters. And specifically, since coming from the energy background, if we look at the specific energy consumption levels, Indian cement industry has done marvels, I think, over the years. I think as a part of the study which we are doing, work which we are doing with GCCA, I think some of the numbers which we got are very interesting, revealing numbers, where you talk about closer to 720, 730 kilocalories as the average for all the plants, and even you have the plants which are the best in the world with figures as low as 690, 695 in that range. Similarly, on the electrical energy, specific energy consumption. On the same page, I think, again, we talk about the word greener cement. And to me, we are already 73, 75% of the cement industry is already into blended cements. So a lot of effort has gone where the industry has moved towards blended cements, lower clinker factors. And again, on the journey of decarbonization, the role of renewable energy has been phenomenal over the years. So with all these things, actually, the industry is doing very well if one really looks at it over the past years. But when it comes to this whole word of decarbonization and net zero, what we want to debate is what more can be done and how we can accelerate this whole process moving forward. So with these brief introductory remarks, I think I'll not take much time, and I'll let some of the esteemed panelists give their views on this whole subject. So let me just start. As I mentioned, I think if it's okay with you, Mr. Pahuja, I think I would prefer that if you start and just give a very broad background of how the industry has moved for till now in terms of their whole its own pathway on net zero, and what do you see as the next major step, which maybe 2 or 3 top points which you would like to see for the industry to move forward in the coming say 5 to 7 years in the short term, and more importantly also in the long term, beyond 2040, 2050, as we start thinking about real net zero by 2070. Over to you, Mr. Pahuja.
Thank you, Giriji. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Thank you. Thank you, Giriji, for a very nice introduction to the net zero initiative of cement industry. Uh, uh, I was unfortunately I missed Mr. Saurabh Palchania's initial speech because there were some hiccups in connecting. So please pardon me if there is some repetition in what I am going to speak. Nonetheless, I would like to mention that, as Girish ji rightly mentioned, that Indian cement industry has done wonders in terms of its lower carbon footprint as well as lower energy footprint. And in fact, CSI in 2015 recognized that Indian cement industry has the lowest energy consumption as well as the lowest carbon footprint as a national on a national average on international scenario. These figures they got from the Getting Numbers Right GNR data. And the main reason for Indian cement industry being lowest in terms of energy efficiency, energy consumption, as well as lowest in terms of carbon footprint is on account of two reasons. One is that Indian cement industry is fairly young. The As compared to rest of the world, Indian cement industry has generally grown after 2000, and it has been fortunate to get access to the latest technologies, as a result of which it was able to adopt to the latest technologies and maintain high efficiency in its energy operations. Second reason is that because the fuels switchover which has taken over, which Indian cement industry has been quick to adopt. Because of that, also it has been able to reduce its carbon footprint. And on an international scenario, as we know that the Indian cement industry accounts for nearly 7% of carbon footprint, as Girish ji rightly mentioned that it is on account of the process emissions, which account for nearly 55% of the total CO2 emission, which is the reason why it is considered hard to abate. But notwithstanding that, I recall that up to 2017, when the Energy Transition Commission of USA Lord Turner, when he used to prepare his reports, they used to term cement industry as hard to abate. And Dalmia Cement of India was the first to work out and come out with a net zero roadmap, rather in carbon negative roadmap in 2018, which was duly recognized by the rest of the world. And after that, the ETC started terming cement industry as possible to abate. That then after that, within 3 years, rest of the world also followed, and big players like even Semburo brought out their carbon neutrality roadmap by 2050. UK Cement Association also brought out their carbon roadmap by 2050, which was then followed by GCCA, Global Cement and Concrete Association, which brought out their carbon neutrality footprint again by 2050. And it is really heartening to note that the GCCA represents nearly more than 60% of the world cement industry. So today, even though 5 years ago the cement industry was considered to be hard to abate, today more than 60% of the cement industry across the world has taken a pledge of becoming carbon neutral by 2050. It has become possible by virtue of emerging technologies of carbon capture, carbon utilization, carbon storage, apart from various circular economy practices, various new cement developments which are considered to be having low carbon footprint, and also the emerging scenario of renewable energy. Cement industry, as Giriji was mentioning, that the in the short term we can target for renewable energy for all its electrical operation, and most of the plants have taken that RE 100 initiative, that is by 2030 they will switch over to renewable power for all their electrical operations. and many plants have also started taking EV100 initiative and also science-based targets for becoming carbon neutral by 2050. So since these are highly based on highly technical concepts and they have the approval of SBTi also, we believe that by 2050 the at least 60 to 70% of the industry will be able to switch over to carbon neutrality despite it the technical challenges which are being faced today. But the technical solutions are in sight. These are either in laboratory scale or at pilot scale, and it has to be only we have to only apply economies of scale to these technologies so that these technologies become viable. At the same time, we have to depend on governments also to come out with enabling policies. Apart from enabling policies, we have also to bank upon the emerging carbon market as well as border carbon adjustment taxes so that the entire world follows suit for becoming carbon neutral. There are already few cement plants which are in a very advanced stage of carbon capture and storage. One of them is Norcem in Norway, and some other pilots are likely in US as well as in China and Japan. And in India also, as Dalmia Cement has taken a pledge of becoming carbon negative by 2040, we believe that very soon we will see their initiatives also for carbon negative roadmap. In the short term, apart from renewable energy, we believe that the utilization of wastes as alternative fuels which are considered carbon neutral. Apart from that, use of biomass as well as use of green hydrogen for fuel replacement is going to make uh, the fuel requirement also carbon neutral. At the same time, the power requirement also carbon neutral. And apart from that, the clinker factor, which today is nearly around 77% across the globe, and some of the Indian companies like Dalmia Cement have brought it to as low as 60 to 61%. We believe that gradually, with the application of circular economy and with the development of newer cements, the clinker factor also will come down to below 50%, which will further reduce the carbon footprint of the industry. And whatever remaining carbon dioxide will be there because of process emissions, for that we will have to then apply carbon capture and utilization or carbon capture and storage, that is CCUS. On carbon capture front also, on green hydrogen, I'll talk green hydrogen first. Already there is a Indian mission also for green hydrogen, and it is believed that within a decade's time, or maybe less than a decade time, the cost of hydrogen is going to become less than $1 per kg. Once that happens, once it becomes more competitive, the fuel requirements also will be switching over to carbon neutral fuels, both for thermal energy requirements as well as for transportation purposes. And also then this hydrogen can be converted with the help of captured carbon dioxide from industry through to either green methanol or green ethanol, which can then be used as a fuel again for carbon neutral or as a fuel for transportation industry also. And then apart from that, the major carbon dioxide emission will be from the carbon which is coming from process emissions. For that, carbon capture technologies are very advanced stage, and what remains to be seen is that how soon or how fast the economies of scale are applied to this carbon capture and utilization technologies so that it becomes viable, for which it has to be a combination of various factors: the economies of scale, development of technologies, development of enabling policies by the government, development of carbon market, development of storage, carbon storage facilities, as well as at the same time development of carbon market. And particularly for developing countries, availability of green finance or low cost finance is very important, and it is the responsibility of developed nations to share some of the burden who have already achieved a level of development, to share some burden of their costs at lower finance to the developing economies also, particularly for these hard to abate technologies like carbon capture and storage, CCUS, or carbon capture and utilization. So once that happens, I believe that by 2035 to 2040, these technologies will start becoming economically viable. And then what remains to be seen is that how fast these technologies will be adopted by the industry. And I am very confident by 2050, the industry pledge by GCCA, by SEM Bureau, by European cement industry, by UK cement industry, and GCCA part of Indian cement industry also will follow suit, and then they will start adopting carbon neutrality or net zero technologies in their domain. So that scenario is very promising. I would just like to mention that about a decade ago, the solar energy which was available at 16 to 17 rupees per unit per kWh. Today, the costs have come down to as low as 2 to 3 rupees per unit, which has happened because of improvement in efficiencies as well as development of economies of scale and enabling government policies. All these three, once they are applied to carbon capture and utilization or carbon capture and storage also, we are very confident that this CCUS technology is also going to become very technically, economically viable very soon. So once that happens, the industry is going to adopt these technologies at a large scale, and we are confident that cement industry, which is a very essential industry for livelihood, for infrastructure, for housing, it will become carbon neutral in days to come. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Mr. Pooja. I think that was a very positive, optimistic speech from your side. I think referring to also how the prices for the solar have come down over the last 10 to 15 years, and also giving the example of Dalmia Cements. I think that how they have taken the lead at initially, and then a few other plants have also taken the lead in announcing net zero or carbon negative commitments for 2040, 2050, and in this regard. So thanks a lot. I think, Mr. Pooja, I'll come back to you if as required, I think, depending. So we have speakers also from some of the private cement companies in India. They're all, and of course, we have Anupam from Dalmia already here with us. So he will perhaps give us more insights later on what they have been, they are now planning. We already have heard about their pledge to be carbon negative by 2040. So maybe I'll come to Dalmia later, but I think I just got a message that we have Monica from Miss Monica Srivastava from JSW Cement. She is also here. She's the head of sustainability, and in fact, she has to leave maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll perhaps give her the chance to say from JSW Cement side on what the perspectives are there for JSW Cement on sustainability, on the net zero pathway. I know JSW Cement is one of the most efficient plants in terms of the clinker factor, if one looks at it. And the fact, I think maybe, Monica, if you could also, while we are giving your own perspective, given the fact that you are perhaps the only one, I think, which is also linked with the steel sector, and refer to this whole story of slag versus how, when the slag comes down, how the blended cement production will be sustained. using Slack. So if you want to just give perspectives from your side
Yes,
for the longer term as well. Over to
yes,
you, Monica.
yes. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for inviting me on your channel. I'm sorry, first of all, that I'm breaking the queue. Other members have joined before me. I took a bit of time in joining because I'm in another conference. So, speaking on the net zero journey of JSW Cement, many of you know that JSW Cement is a new entrant within our cement industry. And it's the only, Girish sir already mentioned that it's the only group where you have the synergies between the businesses, because the whole philosophy of having JSW Cement was based on the circular economy principle, wherein slag from JSW steel can be reused to make the cement, and that has worked wonders for us. It's been 15 years because of that slag availability and slag utilization in the cement industry. Our clinker factor would be the lowest, perhaps globally. So our average clinker factor is 43%. And subsequent, if you talk about the carbon emissions, now the carbon emission intensity is also, I would give it a bit last FY22, but FY23 it was almost 173. But I would not like to quote that such, because that because of the shutdown of the operating, which remained like three months it was not operating. That's why 173 is the number for FY23. However, if you talk about average, which we are doing right now, it's 220 kg per ton of a cementitious material, and that is all because of the slag based portfolio. 90% of our portfolio is slag based, and that is what is helping us. Apart from that, like other cement players, we are also into AFR, where our average would be around 10% currently. We have two plants where we are co-processing waste. One is in Pune, and then we have reached as high as 14 to 15 degree, 14 to 15% of TSR, and that's just in probably in 5 to 6 years, because I remember the number which I have from 2018, it was around 3% or 4%. 4% to almost 12% is four times jump we have made, and it's because we are consuming more of combustible fraction of legacy waste, that is municipal waste, segregated municipal waste. Then another thing what we are trying aggressively is the use of different types of slag in our alternative raw material stage. So while when we do talk about AFR, so most of the companies do talk about the substitution of alternative fuel, or the substitution of coal with alternative fuels. But we believe that when you replace your alternative raw material, placing iron or the bauxite or few other raw material, so it has a huge impact on your carbon emission, because almost 525 kg per ton of cement, per ton of clinker is coming from the clinker substitution. So that's another area. Last one, I would maybe give what Ashwini is spoken about. I heard the last ones, that CCUS. So right now we are not that I would say that progressive in that we are exploring. We have spoken to few companies, but honestly speaking, we are not yet there, and it's at a very nascent stage. But we are open to have few discussions around it, and we talk a lot on built environment, wherein we advocate about using blended cement for the trade, because we believe that if you put the demand, then the supply would be supply would be affected in that manner. So if there is an increased demand blended cement or the local cement, then the companies would surely be working towards their urbanization journey with the more forward, and the result would be achieved. So that's the last part. So that's all. So maybe I'll stop here and give other co-panelists to speak on their own journey. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thanks, Monica. I think you rightly mentioned, I think JSW is one of the youngest entrants, although not so young now. I think everybody knows now JSW Cement very well. I think the efforts.
Girish, you are not audible.
I am not audible.
You are audible, very much audible to us.
I can hear you.
Yes, now it's audible. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, proceed, you're
Okay,
audible.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. So no, I was just thanking Monica for her remarks, I think, and maybe I think, as I was mentioning, so JSW has been one of the front runners, at least when we look at the journey of the blended cements, and I think the way you have moved ahead in this whole path. And you also mentioned about, I think your voice was slightly breaking, I think, while you were speaking, at least I could not hear very much. But I think you also referred to something related to other raw materials also, not just on fuels, I think, which you are trying to experiment with bauxite and other things which are to be used in the industry. So with this, maybe I will now request slightly shift and request Mr. Kartikeya Sharma. I think we did see his the commercial presentation. Mr. Sharma, yeah, you are there. So I think we would like to really hear from you. I think Mr. Ashwini Pahuja very clearly mentioned about decarbonizing the electricity side. I think we earlier heard from Mr. Palsania also. So, and you know very well, I think that most of the cement plants in India, I think, do have captive power plants, and almost all of them are based on coal. And of course, many of them now, I think all progressive ones have also started waste heat recovery as an option, which is very good. I think after many years, I think we saw the movement towards waste heat recovery in other parts of the world. India was a bit late, but we have caught up quite a lot on waste heat recovery as an option for producing power and then using it in house. But still, I think what we want to hear from you is how you can perhaps get the cement industry accelerate and move fast forward in moving away from these captive plants or whatever grid they are using in an economical way, so that it is not a burden in terms of the cost of production. So over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for setting the context in a great way. And I definitely don't miss making the commercial presentation, although I had put together a few slides like I usually do on the sector. But for cement, and I think both Mr. Palsania and Dr. Pahuja, and in fact even Monica, are echoing the fact that cement is a hard to abate sector in the classical definition of hard to abate sectors, along with steel and chemical and petrochemicals. But at the same time, I think India is cement production in India, from what my research tells me, is a shining spot in the global cement production ecosystem. As we at 25 kgs of CO2 emission per ton of cement production is actually one of the lowest in the world, if not the lowest. So we are, as a country, one of the greenest manufacturers of cement, which is something that I am incredibly proud of. Because as a developing nation, cement is a key commodity for us, and in the infrastructure sector, which demands a lot of development in a country like India, decarbonizing cement is a great priority for us as a nation and as industrialists. And having said that, we have dealt with cement being a very consolidated sector. There is a total of maybe 9 to 10 players who account for over 90% of the market. All of these players are very progressive. Probably one of the first cement power plants behind the meter were set up by cement companies such as Shree Cement, Dalmia Cement, Ultratech Cement, at a time when solar was not as economical as it is today. Of course, every time I talk to a cement manufacturing unit, the conversation always is that, here is the unit cost power from our behind the meter thermal power plant, and we need to kind of put renewable energy cost against this to see whether it is economical or not. And in the last 4 years, 4-5 years, solar prices and now even wind prices have reached a point where power from these renewable energy plants is actually lower, significantly lower than the cost of producing power from thermal power plants. And that has really given a new impetus for adoption of renewable energy among cement players. And I think there is no cement player in the country um, in the top 10 who has not adopted renewable energy. And from what I hear from from Mr. Palsania and also from JSW Cement, a quick back of the envelope calculation tells me that to offset, to go RE100 on just offsetting the overall carbon dioxide emission from a cement plant, if we have 200 million tons of production, I think we have more in India. We have close to 300 now. The total renewable energy equivalent for offsetting all of this carbon emission would amount to something like 6 gigawatts of solar across the country. And I think at least 1 gigawatt of that already exists with cement players. So we are already 15% there in terms of the overall renewable energy targets and the speed at which players are moving. I'm quite sure that it will not be 2040 before this 6 gigawatts is set up. I feel that even by 2030, this 6 gigawatt is definitely going to be set up by cement players. And as a company, we are doing all our efforts to build the right product, because today, the kind of scale at which power production is required. I'll just give you an example. Typical behind the meter power plants, cement plants actually have the unique advantage over other hard to abate sectors, that they have a lot of land within their premises, typically recovered from limestone mining areas. So their typical scale is around 15 to 20 megawatts of solar power that companies are able to set within their plants. But a typical plants need around 50 megawatts of power, and behind the meter setup is not possible. So you go for open access. And in open access, if you're located in a state like Madhya Pradesh, which is one of the largest producers, you only have the option to do solar. But with now interstate transmission system becoming very active, you can actually, even if you're in a Madhya Pradesh or Odisha, you can actually buy wind power, which can be set up in Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, which are high wind zones. As Sunshore, we are actually setting up our solar power plants in Bikaner, which is the largest or the best irradiation zone in the country. And we are setting up our wind power plants in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, which are also one of the best wind zones in the country. So the idea is that we are able to create a round-the-clock renewable energy supply, which will be able to offset at least 70% of real-time power use by these factories. And companies such as these larger companies that we are talking about, the top 10, have plants across the country, and they can basically just from these two locations take power for all of their 10 or 15 locations which exist across the country. So I feel that this decade is a very exciting decade on the decarbonization journey for the cement sector. And at Sunshore, we are very, very happy to take this conversation forward offline. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Karthikeya. I think it's quite nice to see the optimism on the renewable energy side. I think, and the way you are mentioning about that around the clock power can actually be sourced for, you mentioned about at least for 70% of the requirements. But I think, to me, I think it's very important for the industry. Of course, industry players can mention and reflect. They do these calculations, I guess, day in and day out, because as we have heard many times, I think that cement industry is very competitive. They need to ensure that the cost of production is as low as possible. I heard a couple of times that perhaps cement is the product which is the cheapest product. I think if they say, I think it's 6 rupees a kg, some figures I used to hear from the cement industry fraternity. So to me, I think if some case studies, examples are put in the public domain by players like you, saying that yes, you will be cost competitive and you will be saving on the carbon definitely, but also on the cost. That will perhaps accelerate the whole process for moving towards more and more round the clock renewable. Earlier one used to talk about only solar or wind, but now I think if anybody wants to get round the clock, that is what can be ensured by players like you, I think, who are in the renewable energy space. So thanks for it. Maybe if you want to comment a bit on that, and then I'll move to the industry, other players.
100%. Absolutely. So, see, round the clock power today, in the ISTS regime can actually land at the bus bar of the cement manufacturer at at up to 70% offset. Um can land at something like 5 rupees 50 paisa per unit. And if you look at thermal power cost, and this is a cost which you can be sure of for the next 15 to 25 years. So if you take into account the long term certainty of the energy price, and you look at your alternatives, which is either coal, which the volatility as a world over the last 5 years, we've all seen the price volatility in coal, and of course the fact that the amount of coal that we will need will drive this volatility even more for these projects. So keeping your hedging your bet by taking power which has a more predictable price over the longer term needs to be taken into account. So today coal power I think lands at something like 4.5 rupees on a good day, and on a bad day it is anybody's guess.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think so. Let me just move to the other cement industry majors we have. We have Mr. P. Srinivas Raju from Orient Cements. I think he is also one of the veterans in the cement sector. Worked for, I don't know, more than 40 years, 35 years at least in the cement sector, and earlier representing, I think, one of the most famous brands of the cement sector before he moved over to Orient. So, sir, over to you, I think, to let us know how you see the cement industry moving toward the net zero pathway. And specifically, I know we have all talked about the best things which the industry has been doing on efficiency, on renewable and all that. But what would be good to hear from you would be that what, as a key private player, what you would like to see as the additional incentives which you would like to see that you as a private player accelerate the journey towards a net zero.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks to all the panelists. Girish, coming to the cement industry journey towards the decarbonization, I will broadly categorize under two categories. One is the primary measures which are feasible at the operational level, at the plant level. The second one is the external secondary interventions, which we call it as the secondary abatement measures. Cement industry traditionally are doing fairly good things, right from migration from the long wet kilns to the dry kilns, and then inefficient mills to the VRMs. They're continuously, progressively keeping a track on the development side, on the primary side, and they are adapting as and when the technologies are getting matured and commercially feasible. But still, there is a long way for the industry to go because there is no end for this thing. But I personally believe that as an industry, we must focus on the operational efficiency on the primary measure side so that the demand for these secondary abatement measures will come down. That will ultimately reduce the burden of the financial viable technologies available and the investment required, etc. Today, the latest decarbonization document available in the public domain is Mission Power Possible MPP sector strategy document is available for the cement sector. So that is, they have released in 2023. That is indicating that the financial requirement for the cement industry to get decarbonized by 2050 is around $1,400 billion they are looking at that. $1,400 billion across the world, only one sector is asking means together many sectors which are hard to abate sectors will be definitely running into trillions of dollars. I don't think any government economy or the private economy is geared up to quickly mobilize so much of financial resources, and also parallelly maturing the technologies which are today at the TRL 4 or 5 level. Because typically we have seen that any technology at TRL 4 or 5, it takes anywhere between 7 to 10 years before it commercializes, making it techno-commercially viable and making it available across the world. So in such scenario, it's a bit skeptical for us to really see that being too much optimistic something is going to happen in the next 10-15 years is something which we have to take it with a pinch of salt. The second side is that about the availability of renewable energy. I'm not sure whether today's available technologies, even with respect to the storage facilities or the generation facilities, are we really geared up to give 100% consistent quality of the power to the industry? When we are talking about electrifying the kilns and all these things, are we really geared up? Is a big challenge. We need to really understand. I'm sure that we are not geared up for the 100% availability of the green power. Without that, even talking about the green hydrogen and then secondary abatement measures will not yield really much result, because the net on net effect when you are powering these things with the coal-based power, it will be more or less insignificant or very, very simple or very, very meek, minimal benefits will be there, which does not make any sense to put so much of financial resources on the table. And the third thing is coming to the cement industry, the space availability. I'm keeping my fingers crossed with about the general belief that the cement industry is having very, very huge amount of the land mass, for the simple reason that the main focus people talk about is mines. The mines, there is few things we have to keep in mind, that as per the approved mining plan, we have to leave certain thing for the water bodies. We have to bring it back to the natural habitation level. Okay, rehabilitation of certain mass of land and then return back to the communities to certain level. And the biggest challenge is when we are going towards the progressive mining from location to location, then how do you move this renewable asset from location to location periodically? Definitely when the plantation is getting matured, you are not allowed to touch that one. Then the certain water bodies are formed, it is not allowed to touch. And certain rehabilitation thing, what is happening, you are not allowed to touch. So when the plant reaches its maturity level, what is it that land mass people are thinking? I do not know. And the second point is that if you look at the plant premises, the way the regulations are coming up, the number of utilities we are putting, it is slowly eating away the space available for the people. And we are finding it quite a challenge to maintain 33% green belt availability in the plant premises. So in such situation, what is it that space availability is once again a big issue for me. And I'm really concerned today that the secondary abatement measures like CCU, CCS, green hydrogen, etc., whatever we are talking, the measures for the decarbonation measures, do we have really that much place inside the plant to really establish those things, managing the layout conditions? So there is a serious layout constraints also there. See, one side we are looking at the availability of the measures. The other side, the practical constraints, which is really throwing a lot of challenges before us. Okay, I was reading the GCCA recent report, what they have released on the CCUS. They are very, very categorically conveying that the amount of study, the amount of parameters what we need to really look into when we are talking about the adoption of one secondary abatement measures, particularly with respect to CCUS, and with certain examples they have given in the power sector, which is similar to the cement sector, is quite amazing. It's really a bit eye-opening for us that the way we are thinking that it's easy for us. No, a lot of things has to go into that one. So I would like to close with this one is that, yes, measures are available, we are growing, and then we are optimistically things are moving. But the amount of resources we have to put on the table is very, very huge amount, and cement industry alone cannot afford to bring that much of financial resources on the table. And across the world, the European community is struggling to support today whatever the 45 plants trials are going on, and hardly we have seen commercial success in any of the plants. Every plant is struggling with one or the other challenge as it is keep throwing before them. So we have to, it is too early for us to make any optimistic view with respect to the decarbonization. Yes, we have to continue our efforts, but we have to be very mindful about the challenges and the limitations what we have in this journey. This is all my
Yeah,
initial.
thanks. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir. I think your views are clearly reflecting the practical aspects of your journey in the cement industry. I think, and the point specifically, I noticed, I think, which you mentioned about the land availability and the complexities on the layouts, and also the issue of mine rehabilitation, the requirement of green cover, 33% cover, and those things. I think those are practical aspects which the industry has to face on a regular daily basis, I think, as you move forward. So thanks for that. So maybe we'll perhaps get some questions later from the audience
Thank you.
as well, and on
Thank
this.
you.
So I'll now move on to Mr. Anupam Badola from Dalmia Cements Bharat Limited. I think, Anupam, are you there? Yeah. So first of all, your views actually specifically on the larger, broader aspects which everybody has referred to, and then I think, as Mr. Pahuja had mentioned initially about Dalmia Cements being the first one to really come up with the carbon negative roadmap. Any comments on how you are moving ahead in that journey? And I personally would like to hear from you on what are the challenges which you are facing on this CCUS thing, or CCU rather, I would not use the word, as I know Dalmia has been talking mostly on CCU. In taking the next steps on that, actually. So I think couple of at least one of the multilateral banks had partnered with you to develop a feasibility. So if you can spend a couple of minutes giving the audience a flavor of your journey and your plans ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Sethi, and thank you to the organizers for having us here. And it's very difficult to highlight the new points after veterans like Mr. Pahuja, Mr. Palsania has spoken earlier. Though I will try to highlight some new points. And interestingly, we are in the time of where Government of India is looking for Vision 2047, Viksit Bharat. And at very beginning, when we started our roadmap journey, basically in 2018, when we developed this roadmap, and Mr. Pahuja was there at that point of time with Dalmia Cement, and under his guidance and his mentorship, we developed this roadmap. So at that point of time, we were aware that the challenge that India faces, and particularly all the industries, not only cement sector, but all the industries, what we face is twofold. We have to grow. We have not peaked yet. We have to peak in the future, particularly in terms of the absolute emissions or absolute capacity in tonnage terms. And also, at the same time, we also have to decarbonize. So unlike European countries where capacity has nearly peaked, the economic activities are almost at the peak level. Here we are still developing. So therefore, we started with intensity-based roadmap, intensity-based levers, and there we created clear two baskets. From the very beginning, we had very clear understanding that our levers, our actions would be under two baskets. One was the existing basket, where we have very well known, established levers, and they need to be accelerated in the implementation. And then another basket was a nascent basket, where we knew that there are a lot of challenges exist, where we knew there are a lot of areas which need to be sought for, where new innovations also need to happen, technological breakthrough need to happen, and that we called nascent basket. But at the same time, the idea was that we keep working on both of them. It's not like that just we say that this is not possible and we stop this. We thought that let us keep working on both of them simultaneously. So on the existing levers, we started on renewable energy, we started on circular economy, we started on waste heat recovery, and we have very well accelerated this. I will give you an example that in last 4 or 5 years, our waste heat recovery capacity has increased by 10 times. Our solar capacity has increased also from 10 megawatt to 100 megawatt, and our total fossil-free energy capacity is now 170 megawatt, which was about 10 megawatt few years back. So this has been the scale through which we have been navigating these existing levers. Similarly, in terms of clinker factor optimization, we have one of the best at our capacity. I would say best, but um, uh, one of the best overall globally in terms of alternative raw material rate. Our alternative raw material rates are around 42% globally, one of the best. And similarly on alternative fuel utilization, there also we have made significant progress from merely 2-3% 5-6 years down the line. Now we have reached up to 20%. And in terms of renewable energy penetration, in some of the plants we have reached up to 70%. In some of the plants we are at 50% in terms of renewable energy penetration. Group level we are at 30%. So this is the progress that we have made in existing lever. Then I come to the nascent basically basket where we have levers like carbon capture and utilization. And without carbon capture and utilization, it is not possible to think of or conceive the idea itself of net zero in the cement sector, because either sequestration through NBS solution or a CCUS or CCS need to happen in order to make the entire sector net zero, or even a cement plant net zero. And therefore, we started exploring various technologies that were available. We started this journey in the beginning of 2018, and myself along with Mr. Pahuja, at that point of time we visited many countries. We visited many plants which were working on carbon capture and utilization technologies, carbon capture and storage technologies. And at that point of time we understood that if at net zero we have to develop a roadmap and we have to ultimately make a cement plant carbon negative then or carbon neutral, then we have to work in this direction. And then made CCU as very important lever of the roadmap, because about 50 to 55% of the process emissions which are ultimately needed to be captured and utilized. And let me give you an example. Very recently you might have heard of flex engines. These are coming to the Indian subcontinent. Also in South Asia and India, these engines are also being introduced. So multiple avenues are emerging in terms of where that CO2 has to be utilized. Of course, financial challenge remains, policy challenge remains, regulatory challenge remains. These challenges will take time. It will take their own course in in their elimination. But at the same time, uh, uh, avenues are also adding. So in that sense, we consume about 260 to 240 million tons of oil per year, and if some portion of that can also be through flex fuel engines, if that can be replaced by green methanol, so we are somewhere talking about 1 billion tons of demand that is being created of methanol. So similarly, there are alternative avenues also. And going forward with advancement in technology, in advancement of the generation of the green hydrogen, I'm sure there will be possibility that the net zero roadmap would be realized in the sector. And also from the growth perspective, because if you see, if we have to realize the vision 2047, then probably we have to add nearly 66 million ton of cement capacity annually until 2047. So it's not just a matter of matter of making carbon neutral the existing capacity, but it is also a matter of how we introduce new technologies while we have to add that 66 million ton per annum going forward until 2047 to make or to realize the vision 2047 of India. So and while we do these new investments, while these new investments happen, naturally the technology providers, leading technology providers in the sector, would also come up with the new innovations, new plans, realizing that the sector as a whole has the net zero goal on concrete, and companies like Dalmia Cement who have carbon negative goal on the cement itself. So with those developments, I'm sure we will have more suitable ecosystem, I would say, because it's not just one player. It has to be a multi-player kind of environment where net zero goal has to be achieved. And going forward, we probably would be able to see that in next couple of years, that ecosystem evolving more and more in developing country like India too.
Yeah, so thanks Anupam for reflecting on the various avenues broadly about the cement sector, as well as I think for Dalmia Cements as a whole. And I think most important point, I think it's good to remind us that, which you mentioned towards the end, I think that we have to add close to around 66 million tons of new capacities, and all these new plants have to be most efficient, and maybe using technologies which are the best available in the world. And of course, industry has been doing it. I think as a part of the GCCA journey, which we have been doing along with you, Dalmia Cements and others, I think some of the numbers which we have for the likely capacities by 2050 is actually tripling of the capacity from what we have today. I think last year production was around 350 or 360 million tons, and we're talking about almost 1200 million tons under the various scenarios coming by 2050. And we know that the life of, as I mentioned during my opening remarks, is more than 30 years. So really speaking, one has to have those plants which can adopt to the new latest technologies, whichever we want to use. I heard not just from you, I think from others as well, I think about green hydrogen. I heard about, I think from Mr. Pooja, about electrification. Mr. Raju also mentioned about electrification of the kilns. So I think these are the new age things where actually I would think that a lot more effort needs to be put by the cement fraternity on the R&D efforts, on the pilots which need to come in. I think, and these are technologies which are going to see the light of the day maybe 20 years down the line, 10 years down the line, but some efforts will need to be made. So maybe now I will put the last word to Mr. Saurav Palsania. I think you started the conversation today in this webinar by giving a larger background. So I'll over to you, sir, if you want to add further on whatever you have heard. And my personal interest would be to hear on the things which are in the longer term, what needs to be done. As I just mentioned about things like green hydrogen, what industry has to do. We don't believe that industry will do research in producing green hydrogen. There are players who will actually produce green hydrogen at lower cost of $1 or $1.5. But utilization of that within the kiln, electrification of kilns, those kind of things, or newer materials which are going to come into the horizon in maybe 20 years, 10 years down the line, which will help industry move towards greener pathways. So over to you, Mr. Palsania.
So, see, when we talk about electrification of kilns, I think that is the area where a lot of innovations have been happening, and industry like Cimex and Cinelon, they have doing certain experiments which are partly successful also. But before that, I'll say that, to run a kiln on a renewable energy or to run a cement plant on a renewable energy is the simplest way of making it 100% RE. And this is not, far off. See, as I speak about Shree Cement, it is running, it is requiring 200 crores of unit per annum. And today, when I speak, 110 crores is coming out of renewable energy. So almost 55% renewable, energy is being utilized in production of almost, 40 million ton of cement. And the only obstacle, we have a target of 70% maybe in another 2 years. Today we are operating at 55. In another 2 years or 2.5 years, we'll be operating at 70% renewable energy. Now, from 70 to 80 or 55 today to 65, we can go in a one shot if there is a right banking policy across all the states in India. And that right banking policy should be one for the nation. Presently, it is different for different states. Maybe in some of the states it's even there is no banking policy. And some of the states, if there is banking, then it is not for peak hours. And like that, there is different policies across all the states. If there is a policy of even 90 days banking today, we will be adding 10% renewable the very next day. So that is the challenge. Another is, I think, see, it's a challenge to the technology providers, OEMs, to give us a battery storage solution which is viable and feasible. Again, again, there is a possibility of adding another 10% to the renewable kitty. So that is where, that is a low-hanging fruit, where if disproportionate efforts are being made, maybe another 1 year we can get both the things, on the ground. So one is this. If I talk about, say, CCUS technology, and sorry to say that, but I personally like what Mr. Pahuja said and Anupam said, that I personally believe that cement is the industry which is possible to abate. And how I can say is that all the solutions are there. All the solutions are there for 50% renewable, for 50% net, to being to be a net zero, achieve net, not net zero, but net 50%. Now 50% is the technology is there. Carbon capturing technology is there, and there are a number of partners who are providing the solution. Only thing is how to utilize it then and there. Maybe that we need to set an example, like there are certain organizations working with Government of India which are doing pilot projects for government. Like one of them is NHEV, led by Mr. Abhijit Sinha. Similarly, if a pilot project is being done for coexistence of a company industry which is using it as a raw material, CO2 as a raw material in their industry, and the cement industry, if they coexist, if new 2 units are commissioned at a single place, I think 50% carbon capturing is easily possible. So that is where another step maybe is initiated, where both the industry are, which are maybe in, there is one of the states called Tamil Nadu, where, or Maharashtra, where both the industries are there, but they may be at a certain distance, which may not be feasible to transport captured carbon, but they can coexist. Lastly, I will say that hydrogen projects, we as the industry are also planning to have a pilot project for, because the banking is not there, because the net metering is not there. So a lot of solar units are being wasted. That is giving to a opportunity for innovation, that how to put a electrolyzer, use that solar energy and convert it into hydrogen gas and use it as a hybrid fuel to the diesel trucks. And that is where we are, trying to explore with the technology partners. It may not be feasible today, but some amount of money we are ready to waste. So that is where we are trying to get into this experiment. Maybe if things if things go in the right direction, we'll come out with this experiment maybe another 6 months or so. So that is means hydrogen gas can also be injected into kiln. But the point is that in kiln, the coal that you are injecting into the kiln, that is somewhere around 15,000 rupees per ton. While the HSD that you are using, it's almost 95,000 rupees per kg. So the replacement is more feasible. Hydrogen gas replacing diesel is more feasible. So that is where we are trying to experiment. Whether it's, let's see, put our fingers crossed. It may happen, it may not happen. Lastly, I will say that as an alternate fuel, as there is a policy of biomass pellets to be used in thermal power plant, and the capping of prices is also being established to some extent by government in the recent circular. Why not say a team. There is a biomass team in government also, and a common team of where people work for using of biomass in cement industry. And I think a lot logistic cost can definitely be optimized. But by capping the prices of those biomass, because biomass transportation is itself a big challenge, a big cost because of low volume and low weight or low density. There I foresee that there is a big amount of innovation that can happen, and biomass can be fully utilized in cement kilns as well as the grinding units, because in cement industry, as many of us are using slag and pond ash, we are running furnace to provide heat into the circuit, cement circuit, and those furnaces are only allowed to use biomass as per MOF notification. And if that is why I'm saying that biomass is, and there are almost, you can say, 30% of Indian cement capacity lies in the grinding unit across India. So biomass, and secondly, can we foresee if MOF works again and or with various pollution control boards and assess why not plastic, why not paper mill plastic, why not RDF or segregated combustible fractions can be allowed to some extent to keeping the SOx under control in grinding units. I foresee that a lot of coal will again be replaced. So technologies are coming, and I am hopeful that 2040 or 45. If there are people sitting across forming teams, representations from government, cement industry, technology providers, is done extensively and in an organized way, 2040 or 45, we can see that at least cement industries are running at not less than 85 to 90%, say, replacement of fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pasania, on that really positive note towards the end. And I think I'm looking forward to maybe getting in touch with you offline on this whole subject of a uniform banking policy, about 90 days thing which you mentioned. I think we have some already answers, I think, in the chat box on that point, I think, for Gujarat, Maharashtra as example from somebody. But I'd like to close this panel discussion at this stage, and maybe I'll pass it on to Sakshi. I do not know how you want to go ahead in terms of any answers if you want from the chat box, or can you take over? How do you want to go about that?
Yeah, sure. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Okay, great.
Yes,
So we have almost come to the end of our panel discussion. We will now be screening some questions and inquiries from the audience for the panel, and Mr. Sethi can nominate people who he thinks is be fit for it. The first question is this.
Could we have a way to manufacture clinker and cement carbon free? At least I don't think there is any way to do that, but maybe anybody, Mr. Raju or Ashwini ji, anybody wants to take this?
Can I?
Yeah, let me take it. At the moment, there are certain technologies which can manufacture clinker which is carbon free. For example, any calcium oxide which is manufactured without calcium carbonate, that is without lime. The simplest example is calcium silicates. There are certain pilots which are being put up wherein we use calcium silicate as a raw material in place of calcium carbonate. And once when we produce clinker out of calcium silicate, what we get is calcium silicates and calcium oxides, and there is no carbon emission or carbon dioxide emission, what we call as process emission. So it is possible, but the only hitch is that the availability of such raw material is very limited. It is not available across the world, and then perhaps 10 to 15% replacement of carbon-free clinker can happen in the near future with the development of such silicate technologies. Beyond that, any technology which is using calcium carbonate as a raw material, for that technologies for either circular economy for reducing the clinker factor or reducing the carbon content in the limestone itself, that is through technologies like Solidia, where they claim that up to 35% reduction in CO2 footprint can happen. And beyond that, it can also absorb CO2 during setting of the concrete. So these type of technologies can be possible.
Thank you, sir. Sakshi. So Anupam, it is for you.
Yes, yes. So basically, this is regarding the case of Brazil, where flex engines are fuel flex engines are there, which are used in the cars, and they can fire with 100% ethanol, and they can also fire on methanol. So it's basically a way to replace the oil, fossil based oil, and it can be replaced with the green ethanol, green methanol. And in India, we have about 260 to 50 million tons of oil consumption annually. So that was the reason why I was saying that if we have already those flex engines coming to India, and our honorable minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, is very, very much, this flex engine is his favorite subject. And going forward, we see that more of those engines coming to India and getting penetrated into the automobile sector. And once that happens, probably we will have one more demand in terms of green methanol or green ethanol, which then can be catered through CCUS kind of technologies.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other ones, Sakshi? You have? Again, Anupam, for you, I think the maximum is for you. You continue answering your questions, which are referred to you on CCUS and those things.
Yeah. So basically, efficiency again would vary probably from technology to technology. Very difficult to say that what would be the efficiency of CCUS plant. But yes, as far as the challenge is concerned, definitely there is a lot of energy consumption. Particularly if there is amine-based technology, then there is a lot of energy consumption in terms of thermal energy as well as electrical energy. And apart from that, there is a lot of finance requirement also, which need to happen to make it technology basically financially viable. And that is the reason that all the CCUS plant currently, which have been set up in developed countries, primarily they are set up with a lot of government funding to the tune of 70 to 80%. So therefore, when such kind of funding is available, the more objective or more aligned objective is probably to demonstrate the technology and to create a scalable technology from laboratory scale to some industrial scale. So currently, this is the status in CCUS globally.
The next.
Yes. So what we have done is, as I was saying, that we identified this as one of the nascent labor, and we started working on this simultaneously. And we reached almost every financial institution. One of them was ADB, Asian Development Bank, and Asian Development Bank partnered with us. This activity started in around our discussion started around 2019. just after we had announced our carbon negative roadmap in California. That happened in Climate Action Summit on invitation of the Governor of California. And afterwards, in COP24 also we announced this roadmap. And in COP24 we had meeting with Asian Development Bank. And afterwards, with Asian Development, discussion started. Phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, we had developed a pre-feasibility study with them. And out of pre-feasibility study, it came out that the project is possible technologically. We carried out a multi-criteria design analysis where multiple technologies like soda ash, like urea, methanol, etc., were identified. But urea was prioritized because of its technology readiness as well as the demand. And then this study is also available in the public domain. And currently, we are looking for the right financing options to go ahead in this project.
Yeah, next. On any other topic beyond CCU, Sakshi, if you have, you can just pick up that.
I think these are all the questions that we have for today. Does anyone want to give any closing remarks?
I see a few questions actually on LC3. Anybody wants to comment on LC3? Any thought on LC3 cement in India? Somebody has asked in the chat box. Yeah, Deepak has asked this.
Yeah, let me take it, Girish.
Yes, sir, please.
Ahuja. LC3, it has been already developed, and Bureau of Indian Standard also has brought out a standard which is almost published, and maybe it will be out very soon. And some countries in Latin America have also come forward with LC3 standard, and in European Union also is trying to bring out LC3 standard. The main advantage here is that in case when you don't have pozzolanic materials like fly ash, you can replace it with calcined clay. The only thing is that calcined clay has to be of a very high quality, wherein the kaolinite content in Europe it should be more than 60%, but in India, because this kind of quality is not available, here it has been capped at 50%. And keeping that in view, they have increased the clinker content in LC3 container cement in India, which is around 50% now. Whereas in some other countries, they are targeting around 35 to 40% clinker content also, because the calcined clay quality is very good. Nevertheless, because it is believed that the calcined clay can be produced because it requires low temperature, it can be manufactured by using alternative carbon neutral fuels, and it may not perhaps have any carbon footprint, as a result of which its carbon footprint can perhaps be as low as slag cement or close to that. So that can be the biggest advantage. The only limitation again is that availability of this kind of clay is very limited across the globe. And in India, again, the inventory is not really readily available. There is a lot of work has to be done about finding the inventory of this calcined clay as a raw material. But nevertheless, it is a promising raw material. The tests have shown that it passes all the required durability, physical and chemical characteristics required of any pozzolanic cement. So it is comparable to Portland pozzolana cement or Portland slag cement in terms of all its characteristics, whether it is chemical, physical, or long-term durability aspects. So it shows promise, and then particularly for countries where they don't have access to fly ash, it can be a very promising material.
Thank you, sir. I think maybe I think we can close the discussion. Sakshi, yeah, Is TERI any other government body planning to come up with a reporting standard for cement? I don't think we are not coming up. At least I am from TERI, so we are not coming up with any reporting standards. I am not sure which government body is planning to come up with the reporting standards for cement. I can't understand the question. Reporting standards for cement means GHG reporting. I think I can't really make out. Again, Ashwini ji, maybe from your work with the NCB in the past, anything you can reflect on this one, on the reporting standard for cement and industries? What exactly is being talked? The GHG and CO2.
I think IPCC has come out with certain protocols for GHG reporting, and these have not been universally accepted, but these are as of now only voluntary. But we believe that in the coming times, these protocols will become mandatory. So like we have for our annual reports, we have mandatory reporting of energy consumption or mandatory reporting of financial parameters. Similarly, mandatory reporting of GHG, CO2 emissions is also going to perhaps happen in the near future. Protocols are already in place, only some governments have to come forward, and particularly those countries which have already taken up the challenge to become carbon neutral by either 2050 or 60 or 70. Sooner or later they will have to come forward with such protocols, because unless we have a uniform protocol, we will not be able to comparably compare with each other how these are being monitored. But just protocols are available.
See, Girishi, further to what Pahuja Saab said, the protocols are available for the sector specific. If you take this cement sector, we are having GCCA earlier, what we call it as CSI WCC protocol. There are one is calculating the CO2 emission. Yes, protocol is available. At the same time, for disclosing the CO2 performance, today BRSR is also asking certain basic information about the CO2 performance. And also we are having a lot of voluntary disclosures, like if you take the CDP, which is exclusively talking about the climate performance. So certain things are voluntary, certain things like BRSR is mandatory.
Yeah. So thanks. I think if there are no more questions, so over to you, Sakshi, for any closing remarks if you want to make, or any announcements you want.
These are all the questions that we had for today. Thank you, audience and panelists. With this, we have come to the end of our virtual event. Very special thanks to our moderator, Mr. Sethi, for superbly managing the session. Your expertise and guidance has greatly enhanced the quality of this discussion, sir. And our gratitude to all the speakers for taking their time out from their busy schedule for this key industry initiative. A big shout out to attendees for extending their time and support for this event. Many thanks to our partner, Sunshore TERI, for helping organize this event. And as we conclude this event, we assure you that we will be back soon with more exciting sessions. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.